Okay, so let me see. All right, so it looks like we're live. Let me get the link for the YouTube live stream. Yeah, it says live over here. Let's copy that link. So anybody who wants to, oh, I've got some. Where's that coming from? Okay, so if anybody wants to watch on YouTube, you can do it at this link over here. And let's start the lesson. All right, so this is HackerFrogs AfterSchool Web App Hacking Basics Part 3. And this is the third Intro to Web App Hacking workshop. In the previous workshop, we learned about the following web app hacking concepts. So this is a little review of what we did in the last session. We learned about the HTTP refer header. The HTTP refer header, which is misspelled on purpose for some reason, it contains the value of a complete or partial address of the web page that is making the request. It's often used for analytics or logging. The HTTP refer header is occasionally used by web app developers as a security mechanism, but this is not a good practice as it was never intended to be used in such a way. So we also learned about the HTTP cookie header. So this is what we talk about when we talk about web browser cookies. And HTTP cookies are commonly used as a security mechanism that allows users to maintain an authenticated user session on the website. In short, HTTP cookies allow users to log in to websites. But since cookie values can be modified by the user, proper care should be taken to ensure that valid cookie values are not predictable or easily guessed. All right, so everybody, let's pick up where we left off. We're going to be logging into the Natas CTF game, and the level we're going to be logging into is Natas level 6. So everybody, please take a look at this link over here, over at GitHub. So the link over here is going to have all of the links to the exercises we're doing today. And first of all, let me point out that we're going to be using the Try Hack Me website for future lessons. Starting next lesson, we're going to be doing exercises over at Try Hack Me. If you have an account over at Try Hack Me, please let us know in the chat by typing in Try Hack Me yes, smiley face. But if you don't have a Try Hack Me account, please type Try Hack Me no, because what we can do is you can make an account over at Try Hack Me for free, and then you can use the modules over there. All right, so some people have accounts over at Try Hack Me. That's great to see. Okay, but let's take a look at the Natas level 6. So just copy the link to the Natas 6 site over here, and let's just navigate to that website. I'm going to close out this Web Developer Tools. It's going to ask you to sign in using a username and password. So you just need to go back to the GitHub page over here. Username is Natas6 and password is this password over here. You need to copy the password and then go back to the page. For username, it's going to be Natas6. And the password you're going to need to paste in and then click on sign in. Okay, so everybody, what we want to do is we want to log into the Natas6 page over here. So if you're able to log into Natas6, please type in the chat, Natas6, I'm in, smiley face. And as usual, if you're having some sort of, if you're having trouble logging into the website, then please let us know and we'll try to help you out. You just need to go over to the GitHub page that we linked over here, copy the password, and supply the username Nata6. Okay, so let's continue. So over here at Natus level 6, it asks us to input a secret, and then we can submit the query. So input the secret. We need to figure out which secret we're supposed to supply to the web application here. So we can just put in test and click on submit query, and it says wrong secret. So does anybody know how we would potentially learn what secret we're supposed to put into this field over here? If you have a guess, please put it in the chat. So of course, one thing that we could do is we could always take a look at the source code, at the HTTP source code for this particular page. Remember, you can access it by doing a right click and then you can click on view page source over here. Oh, and I'll remind user D if you could open up all of these pages in your Brave browser instead of the other browser you're using, that's how you would be able to access the HTTP source. All right, so Fixit42 from Twitch says hello Fixit42. You also do cybersecurity content on Twitch. Nice to see you. I'm just doing a class over here. We're doing a class on web app security, and let's see. So inside the source over here, we have a link over here that says view the source for this particular page. So we can go back, and that's referring to the source code over here. All right. So on Natus 6, we can right-click on this view source code link, and then click on the open link in new tab button over here. So after that, we can go over to the page. So this is the page we're looking at right now. And we don't need to pay attention to any of the code in black. We just need to pay attention to this over here. So this is the code we need to pay attention to for this level. Let me get a better view on that. Okay. So does anybody know what programming language this is? So this is not HTML, and this is not Python. This is another language. Can anybody guess what language this might be? Okay. Oh, okay. User BD says that this is JavaScript. Okay, so this might look kind of similar to JavaScript, but it's not JavaScript in this case. Fixit42 says got ads for cleaning supplies. That's interesting. But the one thing that tells you what language this might be is this little tag right over here. So these tags right over here, we can actually ask about these. So maybe we could ask something like ChatGPT. We could ask what language uses these tags, and then supply the tag, and it's going to tell us what language this is. So these tags are commonly associated with PHP, a server-side scripting language widely used for web development. So PHP is another programming language. The most famous app that uses PHP is probably Facebook, and Facebook was coded using this language. So this is PHP code because of these brackets right over here, and inside the code, it says include this file over here. So we don't know what this include word means. So what we can do is we can just copy this and we can search for this. So we could search for PHP code include. So it says the include statement takes all of the text code markup that exists in a specified file and copies it into the file that uses the include. So what we see here is that include is kind of like the import keyword from Python. And what it's going to do is it's going to import some code from another file. So if it's 42 says, I heard you say it was a course, then it was cut off by the ad. Don't mean to disturb the course. Oh, no worries, no worries. We're just going to do our class over here. You're free to listen in if you'd like. So what this means is that we're including the code in this file right over here. It's includes/secret.inc. So what is this code doing? Let me explain what the code is doing. So if array key exists, submit, post, and then if the secret is equal to what we send in the post request. So basically we're sending a post request, and it's going to turn the contents of the post request are going to be turned into this variable over here called post. And then it's comparing some secret variable to whatever is in the post variable here. And if they match, it's going to say access granted, the password for Nada 7 is something. Otherwise, it's going to print wrong secret. But the question is, where can we find the secret variable? So the secret variable is being compared in here, but the secret variable is not in this code. Where do you think the secret variable might be? If you think you know, please type in the chat. So we're comparing the secret variable to whatever we send to the web server. If these two things match, it's going to give us the password. Otherwise, it's going to print out wrong secret. So the clue is in this over here, the include. So include, and it gives you a directory. This is a directory over here, includes, and there's a file over here called secret.inc. So what we could guess is that the secret variable is actually in this file over here, since it's not in the code. So how can we access this? How can we access this file? Can anybody guess? Okay, so what we can do is we can just copy this file over here, and then we can modify the URL address up over here. So we just delete this. We paste in /includes/secret.inc. So overthewire.org is the domain, and then we're going to put a slash and then includes/secret.inc. Then hit enter to access the file. And we don't see anything. So if we don't see anything on the page, what can we do to get more information about this page? Okay, yeah, UserBD says that we can access the source. So we can just view the page source on this page, and we see that we have a couple more PHP tags over here. So everything inside of these tags is going to be PHP code. And we also see the secret variable over here, and it's equal to this. So this is the secret we're looking for. And it was actually hidden in another file, which is a secret.inc file. So we can just copy this over here. We copy it without the quotes, and then we can go back to Nada's level 6, and go back to the landing page. And on the landing page, we're going to input the secret that we found in the secret.inc file. So just paste it in, and then click on Submit Query. And it says here, access granted, the password for NATA 7 is this. So to get access to the next level, we just need to copy the password, then up at the address bar, we're going to change NATA 6 to NATA 7, and then hit enter. And then we're going to try logging into NATA's level 7. The username is NATA 7, and the password we're going to paste in because we just got it from NATA 6. Click on sign in, and then we're in. Okay, so everybody, if you managed to log into NATA's level 7, please type in the chat. 777 is the luckiest number. Smiley face. Okay, great to see. There are some people logging into NATA's level 7. Once again, if you're having troubles, please let us know in the chat, and we will try to help you out. But let's do a little review of what we took a look at in the last level. So we talked about... Oh, this is the wrong file. Oh, no, this is not the wrong file. Okay. All right, so... Sorry, we didn't have an explanation for taking a look at the PHP code over there, but we're going to have one for this next level. Let's get out of here. Okay, so this is NATA's level 7. So on this page, on this web app over here, we've got two links. So there's a home link and there's an about link. So if we click on home over here, we see that the URL changes to this. So this, I'm putting the link into the chat. I want you to take a look at the link and tell me if you see something interesting about the end of the link, specifically the part that's right after the question mark after index.php. So the same kind of pattern appears if you click on the About page, and then the URL changes to index.php question mark page equals about. So if you don't know what this part of the URL is, then that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about this. So this is actually important to the type of vulnerability that this web app has. So let's talk a little bit more about this. So we're talking about URL parameters. So this part of the URL that is after this question mark over here, this is what's called a URL parameter. So in this case, color is the key of the URL parameter and blue is the value. So the key and the value, this is called a URL parameter. If there's more than one URL parameter in a URL, then they're separated by these ampersand symbols, sometimes called AND symbols, and then the new key and the values over here. So URL parameters are variables attached to the end of URLs. They can be identified by the question mark directly after the web page or directory name, followed by the parameter key name, and then the equal sign, and then the value. So here we've got color equals blue and sort equals newest. So can somebody tell me what the so I put a link in the chat. Can somebody tell me what the URL parameter is in the link that I put in the chat? So the parameter is going to be right after the question mark in the URL? So if your answer is page equals home, that is correct. Okay. So if there are multiple parameters included in the same URL, they are separated by the ampersand symbol over here. But in this case, for Natus level 7, there's only one. There's only one parameter in here. So there are a few different reasons why web pages use URL parameters. The most common one is for search queries. So these parameters over here are going to tell the web server what kind of information to return. And this is actually very common when you do searches. So if you go to google.com and you search for something, so let's say we go over to google.com and then we search for apples, then the first part of the URL that comes back is going to look like this. So I'm just going to paste in that part of the URL into the chat. So you see it says there https google.com/search. So search is the page, and then the URL parameter is going to be q equals apples. So the thing that you queried is going to be apples. So that's how the Google server knows what to send back to your web browser. So however, another common and potentially dangerous use of URL parameters is to instruct the web server on which web page to display. So in this case, the URL parameter says index.php, that's the page, and then they have a page parameter equals home. So that means that the file that is accessing and sending back to the web browser is the home file. So the use of URL parameters, which reference other files on the web server, could potentially be exploited in an attack called local file inclusion. So this is the main focus of today's lesson. We're going to be talking about this vulnerability. It's called local file inclusion, otherwise known as LFI. And local file inclusion is a web app vulnerability where arbitrary local web server files can be accessed through a web interface. So basically, using local file inclusion, we can read files that are not just on the website, but files that are on the local web server. So we can think of the local web server as a Linux machine. So in this case, it's a Linux machine. Let me get so this is JS Linux over here. So if we have a website on the Linux machine, so let me demonstrate. So we're at root at localhost on this machine, but there is a directory called var on the on Linux machines, and usually inside of this var directory, there's a directory called www. So we would do, let's make this directory for fun so that we can access it. And inside of that directory, there's another directory called HTML. So it's this directory var www HTML. This is where you usually have your web pages. So if you had a Linux computer that had a web page on it, it would usually be in the var www HTML directory, and that's where the web browser would be able to look inside to look at the website. But using LFI vulnerabilities, we could potentially see all of the other files on this Linux web server over here. For example, we could see everything in the root directory, or we could see everything in the etc. directory, or we could see everything in the home directory. Basically, we would be able to see everything inside of this web server computer that is underneath the web servers directory, the websites directory. So it's kind of a big problem. Let's go back. LFI vulnerabilities can lead to sensitive data exposure and can also be used as the first step in a chain of exploits. So the inclusion of file names in the URL parameters is a typical method through which a potential LFI vulnerability is identified. So I see we have a new arrival on the Zoom call. Please, we're on Natus level 7. So go ahead and try accessing the Natus level 7 page over at this link. And when you are asked for the password, please go over to this link over here and use the password and the username under Natus level 7 over here, okay? So once again, the inclusion of file names in the URL parameters, like in this case, page equals home or page equals about, it's a typical method through which we can identify the local file inclusion vulnerability. And let's talk a little bit about the file system structure in Linux. So we're going to be using a special payload to access files underneath the website directory. So like I said, the website directory is going to be in the var directory, the HTML directory inside of Linux computer. But on Natus level 7, we're actually, when we look at the web page, we're actually looking at a file inside of this directory right here. So var HTML labs Natus 7 Natus 7. What we want to do is we want to escape this directory all the way up to the top of the file directory, and then we want to access another file on this web server. So each time we do this payload over here, which is the .. that indicates going up one level inside of the file system, traveling from the web app's working directory up to the top level directory. So let me demonstrate in JS Linux over here. So we've got our JS Linux, and let's just say we're in the var www HTML directory, and we want to access a file in the home directory. So what we could do is we could give the instruction lsla, and then we can do .. to go up a bunch of levels. So 1 level, 2 level, 3 levels, and then access the home directory. So this means go up 3 directories and then access the home directory using the ls command. And it gives us the contents of the home directory because we were able to go up 3 levels and then access the home directory like this. So if you find it a little bit confusing, please let me know, and I'll try to and I'll try to explain it in a more easy to understand way. But we're using local file inclusion to go up to the top of the file directory and then access whatever file that we want. So from the top level directory, we can provide a file path to the file that we want to access. A typical test for LFI on Linux and Unix web servers is the etc password file, since that's a publicly readable file by default and gives info regarding the usernames on the web server. So if we go over to JS Linux, we could do cat, and we're trying to read a file, so we're going to do cat .. and then etc password. This is the file that that contains the list of users on the file system. So basically, these are all the users that exist on this system here. So there's root and there's a bunch of user accounts for different programs. If this looks a little bit confusing, don't worry. All you need to know is that these are user account names over here. And we were able to access it from this directory. So we're currently in the var www HTML directory. And we use this command over here with all these dot dot slashes to go up to the top of the file system and then go back down to the etc. password file. Okay, so let's demonstrate how we solved the level, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Natus level 7, and what we're going to do is we're going to modify the address up here. So the address, we're going to go to index.php and then page equals. Right after page equals, we're going to give the dot dot slash. So we're going to do this a bunch of different times. So maybe we can do it 5 times. Dot dot slash, 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 dot dot slash. And we're probably up at the top of the file system now. So we can actually go back down. We go to etc. slash and then pass wd and then hit enter. And that's going to bring us to this page where it has all of the users on the system. So we were able to successfully access the etc. password file. So go ahead, if you want, you can use this link over here, and you should be able to see all the users on the system. So among the users, there are users for all the Natus levels. So Natus level 18, level 17, level 21, etc., etc. And if you're able to see this, please type in the chat, I see the users, smiley face. Once again, if you're a little confused as to what's going on, please let us know which part seems a little bit confusing. Then I'll try to explain what's going on. So you might, if for some reason it looks like the formatting is weird on this page, you can actually go over to the view page source, and you should see the contents of the etc. password file in a much easier to look at format like this. And down at the very end over here, it says, hint, the password for the web user Natus 8 is in this directory over here. So slash etc. slash Natus underscore webpaths slash Natus 8. So what should we do to get the password for the next level? If you know, please let us know in the chat. Okay, I see user BD says this is cool. Yeah, I mean this is actually a very cool vulnerability, and it exists. It exists on actual websites, but I'm not telling anybody to go around snooping on websites and trying to exploit this vulnerability, because that would be a bad thing. All right. So it says here in the hint that the password for Natus 8 is in this directory right here. So why don't we access this directory right here to get the password for Natus level 8? Okay, so let's see. Somebody from Twitch chat, AO, says hi. Hello, AO. Nice to see you. So we can copy this directory right here, this directory path rather. Then we can copy it, go back up, and we're going to replace etc. password with this file path, which is etc. Natus webpaths Natus 8. So when we access this file, this is the password we're looking for. So we can actually, let me give everybody the link. So this is the link right over here. So you see here, this is the password for Natus Level 8. So just copy the password there, and then up at the top, we're going to adjust the URL so that it just says natus8.natus.labs.overthewire.org. Everything else after overthewire.org, we have to delete that. Then we're going to access Natus Level 8. Remember, the username is Natus8, and the password is the password we just got from that level. So after that, click on Sign In, and we should see Natus Level 8 over here. If you manage to successfully log into Natus 8, please type in the chat quad 8 smiley face. Okay, great to see. Let me take a look. I don't think we're doing Natus Level 8 in today's lesson. Let me just do a double check. Oh, we are doing Natus Level 8 today. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at Natus Level 8. Okay, so there's another, on this page, Natus Level 8, there's another input secret. So once again, we can give this a test. It says wrong secret. So if you're having trouble logging into Natus Level 8, you want to make sure that, well, you can just use this link. Use this link, and you can also use the username and password from the GitHub page over here. Okay, so once again, there's a source code tab. There's a source code page that's linked over here. So we can just right click on that and put the source code in a new tab. And we have more PHP code over here. Let's make this a little bigger. So what is going on over here? So we've got this this encoded secret variable, and it's equal to this. And then there's a function, and the function's called encode secret. So, and it takes in a secret variable. So basically, it's going to do a bunch of different functions on the secret variable here. First, it's going to do base64 encode. It's going to encode it into base64 format, and then it's going to reverse the string, which is basically printing something out backwards, and then it's going to run binary to hex. So it's going to take the binary version of the string, and it's going to turn it into hex code. And hex code is this. So hex code, otherwise known as hexadecimal, is the counting system that has 16 different digits. So does anybody here know what hex code is? So you know, in normal numbers, we use decimal. So decimal is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's decimal. But what hexadecimal is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. So this is 16 digits, as opposed to regular decimal numbers, which is a maximum of 10 digits. So that's what hexadecimal is. So if you take a look at the code over here, along with the numbers, you also see digits like D or C. And that's how we know that this is hexadecimal numbers. So what we want to do is we want to take this encoded secret and we want to turn it back into the original form, which is the secret over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some coding in order to do that. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Where are we? Here? Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to run a reverse operation on the encoded secret. So the encoded secret is this. What we need to do is we need to run reverse operations on the encoded secret to get the original secret again. So there was one operation that was done, which is bin to hex. So take the binary version of the string and then turn into hex code. What we want to do is we want to do the opposite operation, which is hexadecimal to binary. So if anybody doesn't know what binary numbers are, so binary numbers are just ones and zeros, and that's what computers read. So in the original operation, there was also this string reverse, string strrev, and the opposite operation of string reverse is actually string reverse. And the third operation is base64 encode, and the opposite operation of base64 encode is base64 decode. So we're going to take all of these opposite operations and we're going to apply it to this string right here. So what we're going to do is, so this is all done in PHP. So this is PHP code. We know because of these brackets right here, bracket question mark and question mark bracket. We're going to use a little website to do our PHP coding for us. So the website we're going to use is onlinephp.com. No, it's not onlinephp.com. Let me Google this real fast. Online PHP. It's onlinephp.io. Okay. So let me get the link. Ooh, that's an ugly link. Let me get a better looking one. This is a better looking one. Please use this one. Okay. So over here. Oh, I've already it saved it from the last time. Okay. All right. So let me so this is actually the code we want to use a little bit later, but let me delete this. So first of all, what we can do is we can grab all of this PHP code on Natus 8 and we can copy it. After we copy it, we're going to go over to the online PHP website over here and we're going to paste it all in. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to adjust this. We need to adjust this so that it actually does the opposite of what this encode secret function does. So, but we also don't need anything after line 8 in the code. So everything after line 8, we're going to highlight until line 15, and we're going to delete that. Okay? And then we're going to rename encoded secret. We're just going to call this secret. So we're just going to rename this to secret. Encoded secret, we're going to rename it to secret. And then we're going to rename the name of the function. We're going to call it decode secret. So we're going to create this function called decode secret. And we're going to reverse our operations over here. So base64 encode is going to become base64 decode. But we also need to reverse the order. So originally it does base64 encode into string reverse into bin to hex. This time we want to do the opposite, which is hex to bin, which is going to be first, into string reverse, into base64 encode at the very end over here, at this end. So over here, we're going to replace bin to hex with base64 underscore encode, decode. And then base64 encode on this end, we're going to replace this one with bin hex to bin, like this. So after this, after line 8, we're going to give an instruction to print out this function run with this string, which is going to be echo, and then inside the parentheses, decode secret, and then inside those parentheses, it's going to be secret. So when we run this, we can go down over here, and you can click on this button over here, execute code. It's going to give us this output over here. So let me see. I think in the GitHub, there's this code right here. So this is the solution for the exercise. So in the GitHub, and once again, the link is right here. You can go ahead and click on this button right over here, which is called, which is going to copy the code. Then you can go over to online PHP. Whatever you have there, you can highlight it all, and then you can paste over it, and then click on execute code. You should see this output over here, and this is what we need to feed to the Natus 8 page. So just copy that, and then go over to the Natus 8 page. On the Natus 8 page, paste in whatever that you got from the online PHP, and click on Submit Query. And then it says, access granted, the password for Natus 9 is this. So just copy that password and log into Natus level 9. So just go over to the URL address bar, change it to Natus 9, username Natus 9, password whatever you copied, click on sign in, and then you are on Natus level 9. So if you manage to log into Natus 9, please type in the chat. It's all 9 here. Smiley face. So if you found the previous exercise a little bit confusing, and I understand if you do, then please let us know. Please let us know that you're having some trouble, and we will help you out. So we only have a few minutes left in today's lesson, but there is enough time to do one picoctf exercise. So we love doing picoctf exercises. They help us reinforce all the stuff we learned in the lesson. So what I want you to do is I want you to log into picoctf, and after you've logged in, please go over to the Forbidden Paths challenge, which is at this link. Okay. So everybody, we're talking about this challenge over here. It's called Forbidden Paths. And the challenge description says, can you get the flag? We know that the website files are in this directory over here, and the flag is at this path over here. But the website, oh, userd has to go early. Okay, no problem. If you need to look back at the recording afterwards, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you want to try solving this challenge by yourself, you can do that a little bit later. But yeah, we'll see you next time. All right, so the flag is at this path right here, /flag.txt, and the website is over in this directory, user share nginx HTML. So what we need to do is we need to start our instance for this website. So just click on the blue button. And then when you see the red button appear over here, you know that your website is running. So once you see the red button over here, the challenge description is going to change, and then there's going to be a link for the website. So go ahead and right-click on that and put that in a new tab, and then access that site. So the site for this challenge says Web eReader, and we've got some files over here. So this file, and this file, and this file. So if you type in the name of the file, so for example, the happy prints.txt, it's going to read a file from, so actually this is a file from the web server. So anytime you can, so we're going to go back to this original page right here. Does anybody know how we would access the flag? And I'm gonna spoil it a bit and say that we're going to be using local file inclusion (LFI) to access the file. So does anybody know how we would go up in the directories to access the flag? If you know, go ahead and type it in the chat. So this would actually be, so what is actually going on in the system is it's running something like cat. So it's going to be cat, for example, cat divinecomedy.txt. Cybernerd Dante in Twitch says path traversal sequences like ... That is correct. So what we would need to do to get access to the flag in this case, and the description for the challenge says that we're in this directory, and the flag is at /flag.txt. So what we would do to finish the challenge is we would do, inside the file name text field here, we would do ... And we could test this first, and we can just take a look at the password file on the system. And we can actually access the password file on the system, which has all the users. So we definitely know this is vulnerable to local file inclusion. So we can instead of etc password, we can just access the flag.txt file, which was talked about in the description. When we click on read, we get the flag. Okay, so we can just copy the flag and then go back to the challenge description. In the challenge description, paste in the flag in the flag submission field down here, click on submit flag, and then you're finished. Okay, so everybody, if you managed to solve that challenge, please type in the chat, I took the forbidden path. Smiley face. Okay, so we've got somebody on Twitch. Hi, I apologize for the question. You're focusing on another topic. I'm studying cybersecurity. Can you write me the best certificates in the field and the field of ethical testing? Do you have any advice on how to excel in the field? And where should I focus? Cybernerd Dante says, I took the forbidden path. Let's see. User BD says, it says the file does not exist. The file does not exist. That's... I think what you need to do is you need to make sure there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of these ... slashes. It could be that you didn't go up high enough in the file tree before you came back down. So make sure that there are at least 5 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these sets of dot dot slash before you give the flag.txt. And try that again. Let me know if it works. LargeOx. So LargeOx from Twitch says that you want to know about certificates. So certificates, I'll talk about certificates in a couple of minutes. I just need to finish off my class, and then I'll talk about it a little bit. Okay. All right. So everybody, before we finish today's lesson, let's do a little summary of what we learned today. Okay. So we did some source code analysis, and source code analysis is the process of analyzing a piece of code of software with the goal of deeper understanding regarding its function. So we did this in a couple of the challenges on NetACTF, and we were able to get the solution from analyzing the source code. So it's a common technique used in software security testing, but it requires the source code be readily available. We also took a look at URL parameters, which are variables attached to the end of URLs. They're often used to send search queries to web servers, but they can be used to retrieve other data as well. And we talked about local file inclusion. Local file inclusion is a web app vulnerability where arbitrary local web server files can be accessed through a web interface. LFI vulnerabilities are typically identified when file names appear in URL parameters when accessing web pages. But this isn't the only way we can identify local file inclusion. Anytime we can access a file, anytime the user can specify a file to be accessed, there is the possibility that local file inclusion exists in that particular input. So what's next? In the next HackerFrogs AfterSchool Web Exploitation Workshop, we're going to continue learning web exploitation with the NetACTF. Specifically, in the next lesson, we're going to be learning about how to inject OS commands through web apps, which is a really big vulnerability. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Right now, we're going to do a little break. It'll be a couple of minutes while we finish off the class on Zoom. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do some free hacking exercises. So please stay tuned for that. But we're going to go to our Be Right Back screen, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, everybody, we're back, and let's see. So this is we're going to have another class in about an hour or so, but until then, we can do a little bit of free hacking exercises, and we can also answer some questions. So a large, what was it? A large ox? Large ox. Large ox. Are you still here? If you're still here, give me a shout out in chat, and we can talk a little bit about certifications. So Largeox also mentioned that they were studying cybersecurity. What kind of, if I might ask, what kind of things are you learning in your cybersecurity program? So in the meantime, we're going to start up some music on the stream. Okay, so let's connect the music. All right, so you should be able to hear some music now. Music is good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cybernerd Dante, for the feedback. All right. So maybe a large ox might not be here, but let's talk a little bit about certifications so that when he comes back, we can point him towards what we were talking about. So cybersecurity certifications. The biggest cybersecurity certification out there is the OSCP. OSCP from Offensive Security. And Offensive Security, this is the premier cybersecurity certification for getting into something like penetration testing, which comes with this course over here, and you can buy it. The thing about this certification is that the course and the certification is kind of expensive. Let's see. Let's see if we can take a look at the prices for this course. So it's not going to let us. Kind of is an understatement. Pebble, hello, nice to see you here. Let's do a little redeem, and this redeem is called Hack the Planet. Hack the planet! Hack the planet! So let's just see OSCP course price. Individual pricing. Whoa, that's $5,700, $5,800 a year. That's what the heck? Oh, it's 20% off for a limited time. You can get it instead for $2,079 for 1 year. That's so as far as putting something on your resume to help you get a job, OSCP is still apparently it's still like the most desired thing. As far as trying to get a certification for your own education, there's a much better one from Hack the Box. So Hack the Box HTB, I think it's called. What is it called? Pen test certification. What is it called? It's called the CPTS. So I haven't taken this course myself, but the reviews online say that this course is better than the OSCP as far as actual education content is concerned. And you can probably take a look at this. You can take a look at this at the following link over here. The CPTS is much cheaper than the OSCP, but it is not widely recognized by people who are doing hiring. So let's see. Pebble says, I heard the exam is actually harder than the OSCP. Haven't taken the exam, but yeah, the course is way cheaper and better. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So let's see. What are the core? Let me take a look and see if I can get the prices. So this is the CPTS cert price. Okay, so once done with the pen tester path, you can buy the CPTS voucher for $210. You can start the path for free. I'm not. I wonder. I wish there was a straight answer. Fixit42 says, "How's it going with the OSC stuff? OSCP stuff, Pebble?" Oh, okay. Pebble says, "Going to finish that CPTS path before retaking." Have you taken Pebble? Have you taken the CPTS certification before, or have you done the test before? How much is the CPT exam? The exam is $435 as a non-member and $300 if you join some organization over here. Pebble says 60% through the course. NSCA member. I don't know about this. I wish there was a I wish there was a straightforward answer for this. All right. So Large Ox, if you are still there, then that was my answer. If you want to get past the HR roadblocks, you probably want to go for the OSCP. But if you're just trying to learn for skills, I would recommend doing the CPTS certification from Hack the Box. CPTS is $210 for the exam voucher, right? But the course, so the exam voucher is going to give you, I think it's two attempts. I think that's what it was. And if the course is the course is different, right? CPTS course price. So this is Hack the Box Certified Penetration Testing Specialist. What is the price of the course? Larjock says, "Thanks, bro. I'm here. The course can be bought in many different ways," says Pebble. Yeah. I think you can buy the individual. The course is actually made up of a bunch of different modules, and you can buy the modules as a package, or you could get the modules like separately. But it's a little bit confusing. But that's definitely my recommendation. Do the CPTS, and of course, if you don't have your networking, and you definitely need to know your basics about computer networking as a prerequisite to doing all this stuff. So, Larjox, I also wanted to ask you what kind of stuff you're learning in your cybersecurity course, in your cybersecurity program, rather. Most of the time I hear about cybersecurity programs, they're mostly teaching people about how to work defensive cybersecurity, doing stuff like digital forensics and stuff. So Pebble says, access it for $8 a month for a student subscription, extremely valuable and affordable. Oh, that sounds pretty good, because Larjox mentioned that they were a student. And Fixit42 says, for skills you can just learn from the free materials too. Back from ads. Thank you very much for watching the ads. They are mandatory. If I could turn off the ads, I would. But thank you very much for enduring them. But let's see. Alright, so if you have any other questions, Large Ox, please leave them in the chat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little walkthrough of a machine that I previously finished over at VulNyx over here. The machine that we're going to be walking through today is the real machine. I actually had run into some technical difficulties with this box the last time I was trying to do the walkthrough. This time I'm hoping that I have a better time of it. So let me grab my notes for that particular machine, and then we can get off to the races. So this was the real machine. Let me get those slides. Okay, so first of all, what I need to do is I need to start up my virtual machine. So the real virtual machine is in my list. Larjock says, I entered cybersecurity a few months ago at the university in my country, and I think that teaching here is lost and very late. So I'm looking for real courses. Larjocks, do you have have you studied computer networking before? And how much experience do you have with technology in general? Larjock says, I would like to specialize in being a cybersecurity analyst. Okay. So when you say cybersecurity analyst, do you mean a person who... Are you thinking more of a defensive role, or are you thinking more of an offensive role? So they're security testers, and they're also security analysts who work on the defensive side. Which one do you think is better? Which one do you think you would enjoy more? So we've got our real machine. It's at 10.2.10.0256. So that's the IP address we're going to be hacking against. So the first thing we like to do is, okay, so let me start my my introduction. So the introduction is, hello, and we're going to be doing some hacking against the VulNyx real machine over here. This is going to be a guided walkthrough, and let's start the video. Okay, so the first thing we like to do when we do any CTF box is we like to run an Nmap scan. And the Nmap scan is going to be run to determine which ports are open on a system. So we're going to run the Nmap scan with -p- to run it on all ports. We're going to run it with -vv for very verbose output, which means we're going to get output before the scan is finished. We're going to run it with -t4 for 4 threads, meaning it's fast but not too fast. And then we're going to run it with -s capital C capital V. Capital C is going to run common scripts, and capital V is going to run versioning information for any services that we find. So we run the command, and we find a few different ports on the system. We discover port 22, port 80, and then a few uncommon ports here. The uncommon ports are port 6667, port 6697, and port 8067. So these are all associated with this service right here, which is called Unreal IRC-D. So IRC is a specific service that we can actually, that is used for chatting. So IRC chat is something you might have heard of, and IRC is IRC chat protocol. So this is IRC, Internet Relay Chat, is a chat protocol that allows real-time communication over the internet via text messages. Users can use an IRC client program to connect to different chat rooms called channels to chat with other users connected to the same channel. If we can connect to an IRC server, there are many different things we can enumerate from the service, including user info, including admin user info, software version info, hosted links, and the hostname and/or IP address of users. So Larduck says, I don't want to bother you with more questions. You gave me the most important sites, and I can use them to search in the future. Thanks. Okay, so if you want to learn about, so I don't mind answering questions, and I'm here to help people get into cybersecurity. This is one of the goals of my channel. So if you're looking into getting into defensive cybersecurity, there are a couple of different sites that you can take a look at. There's a Google cybersecurity certificate. You might want to take a look at that. Google Cyber Security Certificate. Yeah, certificate in cybersecurity over here. Let me get you the link for that. And I think the Google cybersecurity certificate is rather. It's got some good foundational skills. I know a couple of people who have done this certificate, and they say that so it can eventually get you into these kind of roles: cybersecurity analyst, security analyst, SOC analyst, and stuff like this. So Cyber Dante says Blue Team Labs Online is awesome for defensive cybersecurity labs. So Cyber Dante recommends Blue Team Labs. Blue Team Labs Online. So you can go ahead and take a look at this as well. And there's another platform called Cyber Defenders. Cyberdefenders.org. So this is another great site. There's a bunch of free stuff on. There should be free stuff on all of these sites, but the quality of free stuff, of course, is going to vary depending on the platform. TryHackMe is another good website for learning defensive cybersecurity. And a lot of stuff on there's a lot of stuff on TryHackMe that's also free. So you've got a lot of different options you could look at. Okay, so what were we talking about? So let's get back to it. Okay, so we know that we're going to be hacking against IRC on this particular challenge. And every time I come across a new service that I want to hack against, I like to look it up on Hacktricks. So Hacktricks is a website where you can look up a bunch of different technologies to hack against, and it'll usually give you a bit of information. So if you go over to Hacktricks and then you search for the technology or software you want to hack against, I could type in IRC, and there's an article over here. Let's see, pen testing IRC. So this article over here is going to give you some information. So IRC, initially a plaintext protocol, was assigned this port number, but is commonly run on this port number 6667, which is the port number that we found. And what we can do is we can do some enumeration using netcat. So we can actually connect to the service using netcat over here with this kind of command. So we're just going to copy this command, and then we can connect to the service by providing the IP address, which is 56, and the port 6667. So over here, we see looking up your host name couldn't resolve your host name, using IP address instead. The first thing we need to do is we need to log in. Fixit42 says, I haven't used VulNyx. Is it a free site with boxes? Yes, it's a free site with boxes. The interface is pretty minimalistic. So I'll just give you. Let's give you the link to the site over here. So basically, they're all of these challenges are separated in by color. So there's low level challenges, easy level challenges, medium, hard. There are write-ups for each one of these machines, except for the very newest ones. And there's a download link. So all you need to do is download the system, download the VM, and deploy it to your VM network, and then you can do hacking against it. So it's I've been covering a lot of challenges from VulNyx, and I've been very impressed with the difficulty from the challenges. So I guess that really tells as to my level of expertise. But I'm always finding some new things from each one of these challenges. So that's why I've been really keen on covering these challenges from VulNyx. All right, so over here, after we've logged in via netcat, we can actually log in by using these commands over here. So we use the user command and then the nickname command, and we can set our username and nickname, and after that we're going to be logged into the system. So I'm just going to grab this command over here, and then I'm going to modify it. So it looks like we got logged out because of a timeout. So I'm just going to use this command to log into the system. So we're just going to run netcat again. We're going to log in as this user, and then we're going to set our nickname to the same name, and then we're logged in. So after that, we can do a little bit of enumeration, and we can enumerate using, for example, this version command over here. So we just type in version, and we see here that did we? Okay, we got the version information here. So the version of the software is, the type and version of the software is Unreal 3.2.8.1. So because IRC is a very old service and people don't really use it anymore, most of these IRC programs are going to be vulnerable to software exploits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the version number over here, and then I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to search for an exploit. So I'm going to search for this software, and then I'm going to search for the word exploit, and I'm going to search for GitHub because I want an exploit that has a GitHub repository. Okay, so we've got a couple of different GitHub repositories that have exploits for this particular version of Unreal IRC-D. So I'm going to choose this one over here. So this one is github.com, and the username is, oh, excuse me, I need to have some water. The username is ChanceJ715, and we see that there is an exploit written in Python over here. So it says here that it's a backdoor command execution exploit in Python 3 based on this CVE right over here. So what we need to do is we need to copy the exploit script. So to copy the exploit script, we're going to go over to the script.py file over here. Then we're going to copy the raw file, and we're going to create our own file over on our Kali box. So I'm just going to go to another tab. I'm going to go into my temp directory, and I'm going to create a script called script.py. After that, I'm going to paste in the code that I got from the GitHub page and save that. And then I'm going to run the script with these arguments. So first is the IP address of the vulnerable server, which is this in my case, and then we're going to supply a port. So there are a few different ports. There are a few different ports that were running the same service. Larjock says, if you type this query into artificial intelligence, would you expect to find the same answer? So which query are you talking about? Are you talking about the one you had about certifications, or are you talking about the exploit? So if we went over to something like ChatGPT, the exploit, okay. Can you find me, let's see, exploit code for, let me copy it. So, here. I don't know if ChatGPT can actually get links or not, but we can try. I would prefer code from a GitHub repo. I am exploiting this for a CTF challenge. So you need to specify that you're doing something for a CTF challenge when you talk about this hacking stuff, because sometimes if you don't, it's not going to run your request. So it's known to have a backdoor vulnerability with this CV right here that allows remote command execution. Several GitHub repositories provide exploit scripts for this vulnerability. So it's got a few of them over here, and but it actually doesn't give you links. So that's kind of unfortunate. But you can definitely get this kind of information from ChatGPT. Oh, and they also have sources. Okay. So you can click on sources over here, and they actually have the GitHub repositories as links. Okay, that's great. This is a new feature. So it usually, before it couldn't get you links before, but apparently it can now. Let's see. So Serminer Dante says it takes links and screenshots and file uploads if you're logged in. It also provides links, but they are outdated sometimes. So yeah, ChatGPT's the capabilities are getting better. They're getting better over time, for sure. But let's run the exploit script. So we're here. So if you recall, there were 3 different ports that were running the IRC server. So one of them was 6667. We also need to provide the name of our attacking machine, which is going to be reached out to open up a reverse shell. So in my case, it's this IP address right here and on this port. So what I need to do before I run the script is I need to set up a netcat listener. So the netcat listener is going to be netcat NLVP 443, and this is going to be a listener on my attacking system that's going to listen for reverse shell connections from the target victim machine. So I'm just going to run that, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to run this exploit script. So we're going to run this, and it doesn't actually give me any feedback, but we can look at our reverse shell, and we see we've received a connection from the victim machine, which is this IP address, from this port over here. If we ask, who am I, it says that we're the server user. So now that we've broken in, I can put on my voice changer and put on my scary hacker voice. So I'm just gonna do my voice changer over here.
Hi everybody, this is my scary hacker voice. I put this voice on every time I break into a system, and I put on my scary hacker voice and I say, I'm in.
And then I go back to my regular voice. Alright, so everybody, we're in. The first thing we want to do is we want to upgrade our shell. Because we've got we have a netcat shell, and netcat shells are not very useful. There's no prompt, and we can't do history, we can't do tab autocomplete, and we actually can't do interactive input. So what we want to do first is we want to figure out which version of Python is running on the system, because we can use Python to upgrade our shell. So we see here that Python 3 exists on the system. So we can just use Python 3 with this command over here. We're going to import our sudo terminal module, and then we're going to use the sudo terminal module to spawn a shell, which is going to use bin bash. Seminator Dante says initial access. Yes, we have initial access. Okay. So now that we've given this command, we now have a slightly better shell, and we can figure out what's going on the system. So we are the server user, and if I use this sudo l command to figure out what sudo access this user potentially has, it's going to ask me for a password. So I don't know the password, so I'm going to just I'm going to use up all of my password attempts, and then I'm going to start looking around some more. So the goal now is to get some sort of elevated access. We can go into the opt directory and see if there's any optional software in here. And we can see here that there's this task script over here. So this task script is actually what's going to help us get our privilege escalation on the system. And let me talk a little bit more about how we're going to elevate privileges on the system. So we're going to do privilege escalation on the system, and we're going to do escalation through what is called script abuse. If we can identify a script file on the server that is owned by a privileged user and is running at regular intervals, we can potentially use that script as part of privilege escalation. So on the system, we see here that this task script is owned by root, and we can actually read it. So the script looks like this, and in the slides, we'll talk a little bit more about how we can use the script to escalate privileges. So on the server, there's a script located in the opt directory owned by the root user. When we check the cron tab on the system to see if it's being run as a cron job, we don't get anything back. So we can use the pspy program to enumerate invisible cron jobs. So one thing that we need to make sure of when we're trying to use a script to abuse to get privilege escalation is we need to make sure that the script is being run at regular intervals. So if we do cron tab -l, we don't see the task script being used inside the cron tab. So what we need to do is we need to use a program called pspy in order to figure out what processes are actually being run on a regular interval on the system. So pspy is a program, let's see, pspy, let's do a Google search for pspy GitHub. So this is the pspy program, and it can be used to monitor quote-unquote invisible cron jobs on a Linux system. So when we come across the GitHub repository over here, we can actually scroll down, and in order to run the program, we need to download a binary. So the binaries over here for download, we just need to scroll down a little bit after we've arrived on the GitHub page, is we're looking for the big 64-bit binary over here, and there's a link. We're just going to copy that link. Then from the victim system, we're going to download that file. So I'm going to move into the temp directory, and then we're going to download the file using wget. Okay, so I've now downloaded the file, and we're going to run the file. We're going to call this, okay, so first I need to give the file execute permissions. So it doesn't have execute permissions, so I can't run it. So I need to chmod +x pspy 64, and then I'm going to run the file. So it's pspy64. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe the output of the program into pspy.txt, and I'm going to run it as a task with the ampersand at the end of the command. So this means that I can still use my console while I'm running the program. So I'm just going to run that. And I'm going to leave it to run for a little bit. But in maybe a minute or so, I'm going to read the file pspy.txt, and I'm going to figure out which processes are being run at regular intervals in the system. And I'm looking for the task script that we found in the opt directory. So if I read pspy.txt, we've got this information over here. So this is the output from the pspy program. And I'm looking to see if the /opt/task script is being run. So we don't see it yet, but we're going to wait for about a minute and then run it again to see if it's included. But in the meantime, let's watch a bird video. So I love my birds. Oh, look, this is a video with a bunch of sparrows. So these are sparrows at my bird feeder, and I think this was taken on a rainy day. We're just watching this video here while we're waiting for the pspy program to do its thing. So this is a little bird feeder I made from a coat rack, and I put a little bowl and put some peanuts and other seeds and stuff in there. But yeah, these are house sparrows, and they're very common birds, but it's fun to watch them. And here's the Stellar Jay. He's grabbing the peanuts and he's shaking them up, and then he goes away. So all right, so let's see if the pspy program has done its thing. We'll take a look at that file one more time. And we see at the bottom over here that this program, let's see, this is being run okay, so it's running this shell, bin sh, and it's running this command opt task. So the task script is actually being run at a regular interval, which means that we can use it for privilege escalation. So let's figure out how. So when we run pspy, we see that the task script is being run. So next what we should do is we should examine the script to check if we can exploit it or not. So the script's function is going to run the ping command against the domain variable, which is set to shelly.real.nyx. So the domain over here is a variable, it's set to this, shelly.real.nyx, and so the script's function runs the ping command. So here it's going to run ping on the domain shelly.real.nyx. If the domain exists, then it's going to send a netcat command to start up bin sh to create a shell on this domain at port 65,000. So what we need to do is we need to check what this domain is actually set to in the etc host file on this particular host. So over here, we can try reading the etc host file. And this is basically, these are the domains that are set up inside of for this particular host. So we see there's 127.0.0.1, which is the local host, and 1.2.3.4, which is set to real. So the script, the domain that is specified in the script, which is shelly.real.nyx, it doesn't exist in the etc host file. But when we check the localhost etc host file permissions, it's it's actually writable. So this is a big no-no. Usually the etc host file is not supposed to be writable by any users, for any old user on the system, but for some reason there are very loose permissions. So since we can write to this file, we can define shelly.domain.nix, and we can set it to our own attacker system because we can write to the file. So looking at the contents of the file, we see that the domain isn't defined in the file, so we can define it using our attacker machine's IP. So we're going to add our attacker machine's IP as shelly.real.nix. So we can do so with the following command. We're going to echo, and then the IP address of our attacking machine, 10.0.2.22, and then we're going to set this as shelly.real.nix. We're going to echo this, and we're going to append it to the etc hosts file. Okay. And then when we take a look at the etc host file, we're going to see that our attacker machine has been defined as shelly.real.nix, which means so every minute or so it's going to run this function. It's going to ping out to our attacker machine, and then if the ping is successful, it's going to send a reverse shell connection to our attacker machine on port 65,000. So all we need to do to get our reverse shell connection with elevated privileges is we need to set up a netcat listener on port 65,000. So after we do that, in about a minute or so, actually not even a minute or so, we get a reverse shell connection from the machine because this task script sent out the reverse shell connection. And because the task script is being run as the root user, the reverse shell connection is a root shell. So we've essentially finished this exercise. So what I want to do is I just want to upgrade my shell using Python like this. And then we're going to move into the root directory to finish the exercise. So to finish the exercise, what we need to do is we need to read the root.txt file over here. But we're not going to read the root.txt file because the organizers at the VulNyx website don't want people who do videos and walkthroughs for these machines to reveal any flag contents. So what we're going to do is we're going to read the file, but we're going to redirect the output into a file called iRead_root.txt. And after that, we see here that these two files exist in the root directory, and they're the same size. Also, if we run a file hash check on iRead_root.txt and root.txt, they have the same file hash. So we've essentially read the root.txt file because we created this file with the same file hash over here. And that means that the exercise is done. All right, so thank you very much for watching, and hopefully, hopefully you learned something about script privilege escalation or about the IRC service, and we'll see you next time. Okay, so that's the end of the video, and we can go back to our regular stream schedule. And it's almost time for our next class. So Larjox asks, do you stream every day? I don't stream every day. I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So if you take a look at the HackerFrogs Reddit over here, reddit.com, our HackerFrogs. So this is the Reddit, and we've got a bunch of different topics over here. More importantly, we publish our streaming schedule each week. So, for example, this week we're doing this is November 15th when we're doing HackerFrogs AfterSchool. We're doing web app stuff, and we're also doing the agent box on VulNyx. So we're going to be doing this free hacking exercise after the class is over, and once again the class is going to start in about 10 minutes. Fixit42 says, here's a site where you can find people streaming cybersecurity. Yeah, so Fixit42 has linked the infosecstreams.com website, and let me pull it up. infosecstreams.com. And all of the people, all of the streamers who do InfoSec content, they're in a big list over here. You can see my name, and there's another person named Golden1, and Cyber Warrior Studios. Anybody you see online, you will be able to go to their channels and check out what they're doing. These are all people who do cybersecurity content. So if you want to see who's running, who's doing cybersecurity content, you can just access this site and see who is online. So let's do a little bit cleanup. So I need to shut down my virtual machine over here and clean up my tabs. Remove my exploit script. Make sure everything else is going okay over here. Yeah, good. Well, good luck, Larjox. I've seen your name before, and like I said, I really enjoy helping people get into cybersecurity. That's the goal of my channel. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so let's see. Alright, I need to get ready for next class, which means I need to prep my stuff. Let us... So the next session is actually, if you're interested in learning about SQL injection, that's our next class. Our next class for HackerFrogs AfterSchool is going to be talking about SQL injection. So if you're interested in that, you can stick around. So let's see. Who just followed? Thank you very much for following, Fitzygold. Fitzygold, thank you for the follow. So session notes. This is going to be session number 6 for web app hacking. Okay. So we're going to be learning about SQL injection, if you're interested in that. Oh boy, we're going to be talking about that. Fixit42 says, I downloaded an OVA file, but VMware didn't want to open it. I'll take a look at it tomorrow, 2 a.m. over here. Oh, Fixit42? Yeah, if it's super late where you are, definitely get some sleep. I think OVA files, I don't know if they're compatible. I think you have to do something special to open up OVA files with VMware. So OVA file, VMware, VM setup. So let's see. So select open a virtual machine, select the OVA file to be installed, select open, enter a name and path. Okay. Fixit42 says it wanted me to change VMware security settings or something. That sounds a little bit suspicious, but definitely double check all that stuff before you start messing around with the security settings on your virtualization software. So I also need to get my PDF file. Let me grab that. HackerFrogs AfterSchool, web app exploitation. We're doing session number 6 over here. Okay, so we're going to be starting our class in about 5 minutes or so. If you're here for web app security, if you're here for HackerFrogs web app, please let us know in the chat. Please type, web app is hacking smiley face or something like that. But what else? So the VulNyx machine we're going to do after the class is called Agent. So they actually don't give you any hints. They give you the name the name of the machine and the difficulty, and that's all they give you. So we're going to be hacking against that. Fitsit42 says, "Great thing you're doing, by the way." Thank you very much. Yeah, so this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to spread awareness of cybersecurity, beginner skills in cybersecurity by teaching some beginner level skills. These are not skills you need to be super knowledgeable about computer programming or coding or anything. You can just get into it and start getting your hands on the keyboard and do a little bit of hacking. So to anybody who doesn't know, I run a YouTube channel as well, and on the YouTube channel you can see all of the previous live streams, as well as a few shorts. I've got some shorts featuring my favorite birds over here. For example, this is a great little. So these are some Stellar J chicks. They're fledglings, and they're just having a fun time at the bird bath. They're just so fun to watch. But yeah, we're going to be starting our class in just a couple of minutes. If you've missed any of the classes in the past, you can always go to the YouTube and you can catch any sessions that you've missed over at our live tab over here. It's this link right here, and all of the streams have been archived over here. Let's give it one more hack the planet before we start our class.
Hack the planet! Hack the planet! Shut up again!
Okay, so for our classes, we're going to turn off the music because it's a very serious thing when we learn about cybersecurity, of course. And let's just put on the splash screen before we start in about 1 minute. So everybody, this is session number 6, but if you've missed out on any of the sessions, you can go back and watch them. Most of the time, beginners can keep up with whatever we're doing, even if you haven't attended the previous sessions. I try to explain to the best of my ability what we're actually doing when we have any coding commands or like Linux commands that we're doing. If at any time you feel a little bit confused or a bit confused about what we're actually doing, please let us know in the chat and we'll try our best to explain what's going on. All right, so everybody, this is HackerFrogs AfterSchool, and today we're doing SQL injection with TryHackMe. If you don't have an account at TryHackMe and you want to follow along with the lesson, you definitely want to create an account at tryhackme.com. The accounts over at tryhackme.com, you don't need to pay for an account for the modules that we're doing. So you can just go ahead and go to tryhackme.com and create an account if you don't already have one. With that being said, let's get into today's lesson. So this is the 6th Intro to Web Exploitation workshop, and in the previous workshop we learned about the following web exploitation concepts. We learned about structured query language, otherwise known as SQL. Some people like to call it SQL. So structured query language is a programming language used for managing data held in relational databases. So these relational databases allow users to access and manage data contained in relational databases, which are common components in most web applications. So if you have a website and you have a login screen, when you put in your information in the login screen, there's usually a communication with the SQL system, the database system that exists somewhere in the web apps organization, and it compares the username and password that you supply with the username and password and whether or not it exists in the SQL system. If it does, then it's going to let you log in. So this is why it's important to learn about SQL, because SQL databases are common components on these web apps. In the previous workshop, we used SQL queries to retrieve relevant data on the SQL Murder Mystery game and the SQL Zoo game, and we were learning about how to give commands inside of SQL in a regular user point of view. But today we're going to be moving on to TryHackMe, and we're going to be using TryHackMe to learn about SQL injection exploits. TryHackMe is a popular cybersecurity education platform with educational modules called rooms that span a great number of different cybersecurity disciplines. Fixit42 says, good night, everybody. Thanks for the stream. Thank you very much for coming by, Fixit42, and yeah, I hope to see you here in the future. If I see you streaming, I'll pop in and say hello. Let's give a shout out to Fixit42. So /shout out, because Fixit42 also does live streams on Twitch. So if you ever see Fixit42 streaming, you can pop into her channel and learn about cybersecurity over there. But in this workshop, we're going to be making use of one of TryHackMe's interactive rooms to learn more about SQL exploitation. So if we want to use the TryHackMe platform, we must first have a valid user account for the website. If needed, sign up for an account at the following URL, tryhackme.com/signup. So what is SQL injection? So SQL injection is a web app vulnerability where SQL commands are passed to the web app database through insecure user input. So basically, you're able to inject your own SQL commands through a web app because it hasn't been coded properly. SQL injection vulnerabilities can lead to sensitive data exposure, admin account takeover, web server takeover, and more. So SQL injection is a big deal because you can do all sorts of malicious things with SQL injection. So let's go to the TryHackMe room. So to learn more about SQL injection, we're going to be using a TryHackMe room. Let me pull up the TryHackMe room, and I can give everybody the link to use. So tryhackme.com, SQL injection. This should be it right here. So if you want to follow along with the room, go ahead and log into tryhackme.com and then go over to this page over here. So just to simulate what it's like to arrive on the page, if you haven't joined the page yet, I'm going to leave the room. And this is what it looks like if you haven't joined the room before. So upon arriving on the page, you're gonna see this green Join Room button. What you need to do before you can access any of the resources here is you need to click on the green Join Room button. Okay, and then we're going to go through all this information over here. So each room is going to be separated into these tasks. So there's going to be task 1 all the way up until task 10. I think we're going to be working through this module all the way until task number 6 today. So today, we're going to be starting at task 1. We're going to end at task number 6. Zurzex says, good morning. Have a great day ahead. Thank you very much for coming by to chat, Zurzex. And yeah, if you ever want to chat about cybersecurity, you can do it over here. Even if I'm giving a class, I don't mind answering some questions here and there. But yeah, thank you very much, Zurzex, for chatting on YouTube. Okay, so let's learn about SQL injection. So let's see. Okay. So over at TryHackMe. So we're going to solve each one of these tasks one by one. And let me reset my progress so we can go over reset progress. Okay. So SQL injection, they're basically explaining what SQL injection is in this task. And let's make this a little bigger. Oh, that's a little bit too big. Okay. So they're talking about SQL injection and how serious this vulnerability is. Under task 1, we need to answer a question. And the question is, what does SQL stand for? So if you're paying attention, the SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So we can just type that in, and we can finish this task. So task number 2 is explaining what a database is. So we're talking about databases in SQL, and basically what the database is an electronic storage collection of data in an organized manner. So the database is going to have a bunch of information, and the largest unit of organization in the database is a database itself. So the database is going to have a bunch of different tables over here. Oh, sorry. This is the database server. So the server is going to hold one or more databases. So here are the databases here. So in the database server, there's the shop database, the staff database, and the accounts database. So each one of these databases is going to have a number of different tables contained within them. So for the example, the shop database has the users table, the products table, and the orders table. The staff database is going to have the users table, the information table, and the audit table, etc., etc. So what are these tables? We've got our database server. We've got our databases. The next unit of information is the table over here. So tables are very similar to what you would see inside of an Excel spreadsheet. So each one of these tables is made up of a number of columns and rows. So the columns are over at the top over here. So there's the ID column here, the username column, and the password column. And then a number of rows. So the rows have information that correspond to the column names over here. So there's the ID column, and then the rows 1, 2, and 3, the username column, and the rows John, Admin, and Martin, and the password column, and these 3 passwords over here. So these are columns, and underneath these are rows. Okay, so let's skip ahead to answer the questions in this section. So here it asks, what is the acronym for the software that controls a database? So we didn't specifically talk about this, but the software that controls a database is what is known as a database management system. So database management system is also known as DBMS. So DBMS is the answer for this question. Click on submit. And we're done. And it says, the second question is, what is the name of the grid-like structure which holds the data? So the grid-like structure is this thing right here. And does anybody know what the name of this is? So Gopak says it's a table. That's correct. So this is a table. That's the answer for the second question. Okay. And next, we're gonna cover what is SQL. So we've been talking so much about SQL already, but I guess we're gonna learn a little bit more. So we covered this in the previous session, but we can use a little refresher over here. We can give different commands using this language over here, SQL, Structured Query Language. It's a feature-rich language used for querying databases. So basically, SQL commands are what let us retrieve information from databases. SQL queries are better referred to as statements. So an SQL query is also called a statement, or a command, I guess. So if we wanted to get everything from the users table, we would give this command: select star from users. So select star means select all columns from the users table. And we would get something that looks kind of like this as a return for our query. So this is all the columns from the users table. So we've got John, admin, and Martin. But we can also select certain columns. So we can do select username password from users, which means we're only going to return those columns. So we just get the username and the password in this case. So next, we can also limit the number of responses that we get from a particular query. So we can use the limit keyword, for example, limit 1, to only get the first row from a particular query. So in this case, we select all columns from the users table, limit it to one row, and we only get this. This over here is we can look for specific information inside the rows with this kind of command over here. Select all columns from the users table where the username column contains admin. So we can just get the rows where the username is equal to admin in this case. We can also do the opposite, which is get all the rows where the username is not admin. So this symbol over here means is not. So we get the rows where the username is not admin. So there's a bunch of there's a bunch of other statements like this. We kind of create more and more complex queries. For example, this statement over here is select all columns from the users table where the username is admin and the password is this password over here. So an interesting thing to note in this case is this is the type of SQL query which is going to log users into a web app. So select from the users table where the username is your username and the password is your password. This is the SQL query that logs users into web apps. Yeah. So let's see. We don't necessarily need to pay too much attention to some of this other stuff, except this over here. So we're talking about union statements. So union statements, they're going to let us return data from more than one table at the same time. So let's suppose that you have one table called customer with these contents over here, and we have another table called suppliers with these contents over here. We can use the following SQL statement to get the results from two tables and put them into one list. And this is a query with a union select statement. So what are we doing inside of this query right here? We're selecting the name, address, city, and postcode from the customers table, but we're going to union select the company address, city, and postcode from the suppliers table. Marco Pulisic says, I don't get why we always use union. We can also use join. So we could use join. That's another way we can return data from two different tables inside of SQL. But to do SQL injection, we don't use join, but we do use the union keyword when we do SQL injection. And that's why we learn about union select when we want to do the SQL injection attack. But this query over here is going to let us get information from both the customers table and the suppliers table at the same time. So let's see. We also talk about the insert keyword, which lets us insert rows into a table that already exists. So as far as SQL injection is concerned, we don't really use insert very often, nor do we use the this command over here, which is update, which is to edit rows inside a table that already exists. There's also a delete keyword that lets you delete rows from a table. And that's where we stop our little lesson on SQL commands. So what we need to do is we need to answer the questions before we can move on to the actual task, the next task over here, which is actually talking about the SQL injection vulnerability. So the first question is, what SQL statement is used to retrieve data? So this is the most basic keyword that we use to retrieve data. And does anybody know what that is? So it starts with S, and it lets us retrieve data. It is the select keyword. So that's the answer here. So the next question is, what SQL clause can be used to retrieve data from multiple tables? So we talked about a certain keyword that was used to retrieve data from more than one table at the same time, and that is the union keyword. So this is actually this is very important for doing SQL injection. We'll see in a little bit. And the last question here is, what SQL statement is used to add data? So we just talked about a few different SQL commands. The one that is used to add data to an existing table is the insert command. Okay, so task 5, what is SQL injection? So SQL injection, so the point wherein a web application using SQL can turn into an SQL injection is when user-provided data gets included in the SQL query. But what does it look like? So take a look at the following scenario. You've come across an online blog, and each blog entry has a unique ID number. The blog entries may be either set to public or private, depending on whether they're ready for public release. The URL for each blog entry may look something like this. So it's this URL parameter here, blog ID equals 1. So from the URL above, you can see that the blog entry selected comes from the ID parameter in the search query string. The web application needs to retrieve the article from the database and may use an SQL statement that looks similar to the following. So select all columns from the blog table, where the ID is equal to 1 and private equal to 0. So private equals false, limit 1, which returns the first row. Okay, so let's pretend article ID 2 is still locked as private. So private is set to 1. So it cannot be viewed on the website. We could now instead call the URL this over here. So blog ID equals 2, and then this, semicolon, dash dash. So does anybody know what this part of the payload is. So what is this doing? So we provide ID equals 2, but the ID 2 is supposed to be private. We're not supposed to be able to access it. Thank you very much for following, Zerzex. Thank you very much for following, and welcome to the HackerFrogs gang. So this is actually a SQL injection. So the SQL injection here is going to terminate the SQL statement with this semicolon here, and then it's going to comment out the rest of the SQL query with these double dashes right here. So it creates this SQL statement right here. Select star from blog where ID equals 2. This part, which cares about whether the article is private or not, is omitted because we supplied this comment over here. So the semicolon in the URL signifies the end of the SQL statement, and the 2 dashes cause everything afterwards to be treated as a comment. So that's how we would be able to use SQL injection to view private articles on the blog website. Okay, so the question here is, what character signifies the end of an SQL query? So this is the same character as in a lot of other programming languages, and it's the semicolon. So every instruction in SQL has to end with a semicolon. Well, at least it's supposed to. Some systems let you get away with not including it, but if you want to do it properly, you have to use the semicolon. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about, oh, sorry, there's one more thing I wanted to point out about task 4. So what is SQL injection? So an example SQL login query would look like this. So select star from users, where the username is admin and the password equals password. So this of course is user input right here. And in a web application, you would be able to put in whatever you want for these 2 fields over here. In a web app, if this statement were to be supplied by the user, it would log the user in if the statement returned true. So this has to be a true statement. So there has to be a username named admin, and their password has to be password for the login to actually happen. So we're talking a little bit, in task 5, we're going to be talking about in-band SQL injection. So what is in-band SQL injection? So this is a type of SQL injection where the results of the injected query can be seen in the output of the web app. It is considered the easiest type of SQL injection to exploit. So over here, let's go back to the TryHackMe website. And we're going to take a look at task 5. So there's a website that's associated with this task. So we need to start up the website by clicking on the green Start Machine button over here. So the machine is going to take a little bit of time to start up. It's going to take about 2 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let this finish loading. But in the meantime, we're going to take a look at the information in task 5. So we're talking about in-band SQL injection. This is the easiest type of SQL injection to detect and exploit. In-band just refers to the same method of communication being used to exploit the vulnerability and receive the results. For example, discovering an SQL injection vulnerability on a website page and being able to extract data from the database to the same page. So in-band means that we send some information to the web app, and the web app also displays the output of whatever we send to it. There's another type of SQL injection called error-based. So this type of SQL injection is useful for easily obtaining information about the database structure because error messages from the database are printed directly to the browser screen. This can often be used to enumerate a whole database. So error-based SQL injection means that there's essentially a stack trace after we give an SQL command to the system that causes an error. And we've got something called union-based SQL injection. So this is a type of injection that utilizes the SQL union operator alongside a select statement to return additional results to the page. This method is the most common way of extracting large amounts of data via an SQL injection vulnerability. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at a website where we can actually do SQL injection, and that's going to be starting up in just a little bit. So everybody, if you're following along and you're loading up your own website over here, please type in the chat, I'm following in THM, smiley face. Okay, so after the web page finishes loading up, what we can do is we can put this in its own browser tab by going down to the bottom over here and clicking on this button called View in Full Screen. So we actually want to see this in full screen so that we don't have to look at this cramped view over here. So just click on View in Full Screen, and that's going to put the website in its own browser tab here. I'm just going to make this much bigger so that we can better take a look at what's going on. Okay, so after we've done that, we can go back to the TryHackMe page, and we can actually exit the split view over here. So just go down to the bottom. There's a minus sign over here. It's exit split view, and just click that. And then we're going to get our full web page back. That's what we want. Okay, so before we start on the SQL injection, let me see if... Okay, so we're doing in-band SQL injection for this exercise. We're also doing error-based injection. So error-based injection is a type of in-band SQL injection where SQL-related error message are returned to the web page output. So if we supply some sort of SQL input that's going to cause the system to error out, it's going to send the error messages directly to the web app. And we're also going to be talking about union select statements. So union select statements allow rows to be returned from multiple tables at once. User Amber in YouTube says you're following in THM. That's great. That's great to see. All right, so we're using union statements over here. So we're selecting. Okay, maybe we should just go back. We should go back to TryHackMe, and it says here that the key to discovering error-based SQL injection is to break the code's SQL query by trying certain characters until an error message is produced. These are commonly single apostrophes or quotation marks. So if you go over to the website here, we're basically looking at a blog website. And the blog website that is returned is indicated by the URL parameter here. So it's ID equals 1. But if we wanted to test this for SQL injection, we would give an apostrophe or a double quote. So if we give the double quote and hit enter on the address bar, it's going to give us an error message. So the error message in here tells us that there's probably an SQL injection vulnerability on the system, because we were able to get the system to show an error message. And another interesting thing about this particular web page is that it shows you which SQL query is being run. So the SQL query being run in this case is select all columns from the article table where the ID is equal to 1. But since we put in this double quote over here, it actually is an invalid statement. So it gives us the error message. So the first thing we need to do to get SQL injection to do an SQL injection attack is we need to figure out if we can use a union select statement to get additional information from the database. So it says here that the first thing we want to do to return data to the browser without displaying an error message. First, we're going to try to use the union operator so we can receive an extra result if we choose it. Try setting the mock browser's ID parameter to 1 union select 1. So if we go back over here, inside the URL bar, we're going to give ID equals 1, and then we're going to give the union select. Union select 1. So after we've done this, we're going to hit enter, and it's going to give us a different error message. So it says the select statements have a different number of columns. So one of the requirements to use a union select statement in SQL is that the original statement and the new statement through union select have to have the same number of columns. For example, if you're getting username and password from the original statement, you have to get the same number of columns, in this case it's 2, with the union select statement in order for it to be a proper statement in SQL. So this is where we try to determine how many columns are in the statement by iterating. So we do union select 1 to see if it's 1 column. If it's not, then we can try union select 1, 2 to see if there are 2 columns in the original statement, and then union select 1, 2, 3 to see if there are 3 columns in the original statement. So if we go over to the vulnerable web page here, we can union select 1 and then comma 2 to see if there are 2 columns, and it still gives us the different number of columns error, and then we can do another comma and provide 3. So this is basically counting the number of columns. After we try 3, we see that we actually get something back, and there's no error message anymore. So we know that the original statement had 3 columns associated with it. So the next thing we want to do is the error message is gone and the article is being displayed, but we want to display our data instead of the article's data. The article is displayed because it takes the first returned result somewhere in this website's code and shows that. To get around that, we need to first query. We need the first query to produce no results. So this can be done by simply changing the article ID from 1 to 0. So if we give the ID for the article that's being returned to 0, which doesn't exist, that means that that article is not going to show up, and instead our union select stuff is going to show up. So over here, we change the ID number from 1 to 0, and instead of the article appearing, we now see the numbers 1, 2, and 3. So this is where the first column would show up. This is where the second column would show up. And this is where the third column would show up. So we can now get extra information from the database. So you now see that the article is just made up of the result from the union select, returning the columns 1, 2, and 3. We can start using these returned values to return more useful information. First, we're going to get the database name that we have access to. So this is something that we do when we're trying to do union select SQL injection. We first have to figure out what the name of the database that we're working on is. So the first row is going to have the number 1. The second row is going to have the first column is number 1. The second column is number 2. The third column, we're going to use this function right here to figure out what the name of the database is. So this is the database function. So if we go back to the address bar, we're going to replace the number 3 with the database function over here, which is the word database with the parentheses. So when we send this command, we see 1 and 2, but instead of number 3, we see that the database name is SQLi_1. So after we get this information, we can actually get more information from the database. So we see that the name of the database is SQLi_1. Next, we're going to use a query to get the list of tables in the database. So after we've discovered the name of the database, we can discover the name of all the tables in this database with this command right here. So it's union select 1, 2, and the command we're actually interested in looking at is group concat table name from information_schema.tables, where table schema equals SQLi_1. So this is not something we're expected to know offhand. Usually what we would do is we would refer to something called a cheat sheet, and the cheat sheet would have a bunch of different useful commands for doing SQL injection. It would include commands like this for different types of SQL software, like MySQL or Microsoft SQL. The syntax for these commands is different in each different language. But in this case, we can give this payload, copy it, and then go over to the web app. In the web app, so after ID equals, select everything and then paste in the command and then hit enter. So remember, we need to have the database name, and after we have the database name, we can actually search for all the table names. And the table names are article and staff users. So there are two tables. There are two tables in the database. Okay, so after we get the table names, what we can do is we can get the column names from the tables. So if we have the database, we can get the table names. After we have the table names, like staff users, we can actually get the names of the columns by giving this kind of command right here, group concat column name from information_schema.columns. So once again, we are not expected to know these commands offhand. We usually refer to a cheat sheet to get these kind of commands when we're doing our SQL injection. So we can just copy this command over here, then go over to the address bar. So everything after ID equals, we're going to highlight, and then we're going to paste in the new command. So once more, we're getting the column names from the special table inside the database called information schema with this table name, which is equal to staff users. So because we were able to get the database name, we could get the database table names. Because we're able to get the table names, we can get the column names. So when we give this command, we see that the staff users table has these columns: ID, password, and username. Okay, so the last command we're going to do in order to get the password and the username and the password from the database is we're going to give this command over here. So from staff users, we're going to use this function right here to get the username and password from the staff users table, and we're going to separate it with this colon over here, and between each one of the entries, we're going to give a line break. So this is slightly more advanced SQL injection stuff. This isn't usually what we would do, but this is a special web app, so we have to do some fancy stuff in order to get the information we want. So this payload over here, we can copy that and then go over to the vulnerable app. Remember, the payload is going to be injected after ID equals. So ID equals, highlight everything after that, paste in the payload, and we can see here that the SQL query is select all columns from the article where ID equals 0, which means nothing shows up, and then the union select is actually going to get the information that we want. So we're going to get the username and password from the staff users table. So we give this command, and we get the usernames and the password. So after we've stolen this information, we can actually finish this level of the web app for SQL injection. So we have to answer this question: what is the user Martin's password? So Martin's password is this. We can just highlight this and copy it, and then paste it in, and we can submit this as the password. So after we've done that, we're now on level 2. So GoPucks ask, how would you look up a cheat sheet for that command? So you can search for SQL injection cheat sheet. You can just Google it, and these articles over here are going to give you a bunch of different commands you can do for SQL injection. And remember that each different piece of SQL software is going to have its own commands. So I'll just paste this in to the chat just in case anybody wants to look at it. But the stuff in the cheat sheet is you probably won't understand most of what's going on in these cheat sheets, because we're just starting with our SQL injection education over here. But anyways, okay, so after we submit the password, we're now on level 2, and we get a flag over here. So in order to finish the task, we need to copy this this flag, and then go over to the Track Me page and answer the question, what is the flag after completing level 1? So just paste in the flag you got in level 2, click on Submit. Okay, so we're going to go over the last concept we're going to go over in today's class, and we're going to talk about the blind SQLi authentication bypass. So this is otherwise known as the SQLi, the SQL injection login bypass, and it's a very useful technique for breaking into insecure web apps. So we're talking about, so we're not talking about in-band SQL injection anymore. We're talking about what is called blind SQL injection. So in-band SQL injection is where you can see the result of the attack directly on the screen, where blind SQL injection is where you don't get any feedback after you do your SQL injection. So if you're successful, if you're not successful, it doesn't give you any feedback, but the injection still works, even if you can't see the results. So it might surprise you that all we need is a little bit of feedback to successfully enumerate a whole database. So we're going to be talking about this technique right here, which is called the authentication bypass. I think I've got a couple of slides talking about this. So blind SQL injection is SQL injection where the error messages resulting from improper SQL queries has been disabled, but the requests are going through nonetheless. So this is blind SQL injection. this should be authentication. Authentication bypass is a type of blind SQL injection where insecurely written code allows the login of a user to a web app without the proper use of the username and password. So because the login SQL statement has been improperly written, some apps let people log in without using a real username and password because they're able to inject into the login form. So the most basic authorization bypass SQL command is illustrated by the SQL command shown above. So it's single quote space or space 1 equals 1 space dash dash or minus minus space. So note that there's a space between the command and the double dashes. So after the double dash, there is a space. We have to keep that in mind. So why does this work? This works because the default, okay, I think the Try Hack Me page talks a little bit more about this. So the login SQL statement is probably something that looks like this. So select all columns from users where the username is whatever you supply as the username, and the password is whatever you supply as the password, limit 1. So we can inject SQL commands into this statement in order to bypass this and log in. So what the web app cares about is that we supply a true statement so that there is a valid username and a valid password, and that's going to log us in. So in order to bypass this, we're going to use this payload right here. So quote or 1 equals 1 semicolon double dashes. So what this is going to do is it's going to turn the SQL query into this. So select star from users where username equals empty string and password equals empty string or 1 equals 1. So normally we need to supply a valid username and password, but because we're injecting this code in here, or 1 equals 1, then we're going to be logged in because 1 equals 1, 1 equals 1 is a correct statement. So if we supply or, we can supply our own true statement here to log in, and this statement doesn't need to be true. So let's demonstrate. So over in level 2, we see here the SQL query, select star from usernames where username equals something and password equals something, limit 1. So if we do test and test, this is what it would look like in the SQL query. So test and test have to be true for us to log in, but this is not true. There's no username named test, there's no password named test. It says no results found. So this was a false statement, so it doesn't log us in. So what we do is in the username over here, we can supply the authentication bypass. So that's going to be quote. Oh, geez. So quote space or 1 equals 1, and then semicolon to stop the statement, and then dash dash space to comment out everything else. So we see here that this part of the query is not run. So select this thing from username or 1 equals 1, which is true. If this is true, then it's going to log us in. So if we give this statement, then the SQL query is true. We click on login, and we've successfully bypassed the login screen. So it says you've bypassed the login and can move to the next level. So this is level 3. We can just click on that, and we've finished this task. It gives us a little flag over here after we've arrived at level 3. I want you to copy that and then go back to the try acme task, and then paste in the flag, click on submit. Okay, so this is actually the, this is where we're going to, this is the last thing we're going to learn about SQL injection, but there are a couple of different examples. So first of all, there's a web app out there that is free for web app security testing. It's called the OWASP Juice Shop. So this link right here. Oh, is it offline? Let me check. So I'm going to reset this. Oh, it's offline. That's sad. Okay. So before we finish today's lesson, we're going to do an exercise from PicoCTF. So PicoCTF has a bunch of different challenges. They have a lot of different web exploitation challenges as well. And today's challenge is going to be the more SQLi challenge over here. So let me copy this. So if you want to play along, you can go over to this website after you've logged into PicoCTF. So PicoCTF is a great resource. If you don't have an account over there, you can make an account for free. After you've logged into PicoCTF, then you can access this challenge. And this is the More SQLi challenge. The description says, can you find the flag on this website? Additional details will be available after launching your challenge instance. So we're going to practice breaking into another website using SQL injection with this challenge. The first thing you need to do is click on the blue button over here called Launch Instance. So after a few seconds, you'll see that or maybe after a few seconds, you're going to see it error out in this case. But if the challenge is successfully started, you should see the blue button over here change to a red color. It just doesn't want to respond right now. So I'll just wait for this, and then I'll click on Launch Instance again. Okay, so I think it's going through now. Okay, so it says, can you find the flag on the website? Try to find the flag here. So what we can do is we can just put this website in another browser tab. And the security, this is a login page. So we just demonstrated that we can do the SQL injection login bypass. And let's talk a little bit more about that bypass before we do the bypass on this one over here. So the single quote over here is going to close out the original query, username equals something something. If this portion is not included, the SQL database will return an error. So this is why we need the single quote here. The next part, or, is what enables the bypass because it enables us to create our own true statement. We need a true statement in order to log into the web app. So the or statement here is going to let us supply our own true statement here. Even if there's no matching username, because the or conditional is used, the overall query can return true if we supply the correct statement. The correct statement in this case is going to be 1 equals 1. So this is true. So the double dashes over here and the space is going to comment out the rest of the query, and it's going to let the payload run normally. Okay, so back at the web app over here. Oh, not this one. This one. Okay, so there's a username and a password. We're going to use the bypass technique to get past this. So first of all, we're going to do single quote or 1 equals 1 space double dash space. Okay, so for the password, we're going to type in something, test, and then click on login. So the problem is this didn't work. Can anybody, so this is a SQL query being used. Can anybody identify why the SQL statement didn't let us log in? So an important thing to note is that this portion of the bypass is going to quote out the rest of the SQL query. So my question is, why did this not work? If anybody has a clue, if anybody has a theory, please type it in the chat. So password equals test, username equals something something, or 1 equals 1. So Gopak says the hint says SQLite. So actually that is relevant, but it's not relevant to this part of the challenge. So let me explain. So the reason why this doesn't work is because normally the SQL statement is username equals something and then password equals something. Because they put password first, right, Marco Pulisic has it correct. We need to put the or in the password in this case. So we need to comment out the rest of the query, which means we need to get to it here in the password field. So we need to supply our login bypass in the password field and not the username field. So we can just go back, and in the username field we can do whatever we want. In the password field we're going to do single quote space or space 1 equals 1 space dash dash space. So this is going to let us log in. So after we put that in, click on login, and we've now logged into the application. So over here, there's another SQL injection we need to do to get the flag. So over here, we're going to search for an office. We need to do something that's going to let us get something back from the system. So this city, Algiers over here, we're just going to search for this. Algiers. We're going to search for that, and this entry is going to show up. So we want a SQL inject into this field over here. So we can supply Algiers, and then we can supply a union select statement. So it's union select 1. Actually, we're going to union select null because we're going to use the null to count the number of columns in our union select. So union select null space dash dash space. And we're just going to copy this so we can paste this in later. When we search this, we don't get anything because it errored out. So we can paste this in. So union select null, we're going to try 2 columns instead. So we can do union select null, comma null, and we can see if this actually returns us anything. It doesn't return us anything. We can try union select null, null, null. So that's 3 nulls to figure out if there are 3 columns in the original statement. So this actually returned us something, which means that our statement actually went through. So it's 3.
Am I live yet?
Whoa,
Okay,
that's
live.
weird. I have no idea what that was. Anyways, all right. So null, 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 which means we have 3 columns in our original statement. So now we can do some enumeration. So the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out the name of the database, because if we don't have the name of the database, we can't get any other information. So null, null, null is going to become let's see, null null database. So Gopux said that the hint in the challenge said SQLite Lite. So we need to figure out which function is going to give us the name of the database in SQLite Lite. So we could ask ChatGPT using SQLite. Thank you for following Mean Machine Rex. Thank you for following the channel, and welcome to the HackerFrog gang. So we can ask, using SQLite, which function returns the name of the database currently used. So in SQL, the function pragma database list can be used to return information about the databases currently in use, including the names. So we're going to give this command right here, pragma database list. So let's copy that and then go back to the web app. So in the web app, instead of the third null column, we're going to give pragma database list as our command. So we're going to search for that. Oh, it didn't give us anything. That's weird. Pragma database list. So maybe that's not. Thank you very much for following, Turtle. Thank you very much for the follow. Pragma database list. Maybe there's another command that could be done. So, okay, maybe not pragma. We're going to ask, can we get the database name while using a select statement? Okay, so let's see. What does it say here? Why is this so complicated? Okay, you know what? I've written a guide for this particular challenge on my GitHub, so I'm just going to take a look at that. Hold on. So this one is HackerFrogs, and I wrote this as a CTF document for Pico CTF 2024. In the web exploitation. Oh, no. This was 2023. Yeah. More SQLi. Okay, so okay. So we're going to get the name from the SQLite master where type equals table. No? Oh, no. Okay. SQLite only uses one database at a time. So I forgot about that. It says SQLite, which points to the SQL system using a SQLite. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to get the table names. So what we need to do is we need to give this command, which gets the table names from the system, which is name from SQLite master where type equals table. So we can go back here, and in the place of the third null, we're going to put in this command where it's going to be null name from SQLite master where type equals table. So this is going to give us the names of all the tables in the system, which is hints, more table, offices, and users. So now that we know the names of the tables, we can actually get the columns from these tables. But I'm going to give everybody a big heads up that the table we're looking for is this more table. So how can we get the column names? So we can get the column names by giving this command over here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get name from pragma table info for the more table table. So we can go back and we can inject over here. So null name from pragma table info for the more table. And we see that the table actually has two columns. There's the flag column and the ID column. So we're actually interested in getting the flag column. So the injection is actually going to become very easy after this. So we're just going to use a select statement. And the select statement is going to be flag from more underscore table. So we're selecting flag from more underscore table, and we can just search that. And we see the flag in the results over here. If you're here, you must have seen it, and there's the flag for the challenge. So we just need to copy the flag, then go back to the challenge description page. In the submission field here, paste in the flag and click on Submit Flag. And then you're done. So like I said, sometimes you have to do a lot of research to figure out which commands you have to do for a particular SQL system. So for example, if you wanted to try to figure out what commands you would do for the PostgreSQL, this is another system. I want to run a PostgreSQL command which retrieves the database name. Using the select statement. So you would try to do some research. You could use something like ChatGPT. You can look at some different cheat sheets, but it says you can use the current database function. So this is very straightforward. So if I were doing SQL injection against a PostgreSQL database, I would use this to figure out the database name, and then go from there. So after you figure out the database name, you can figure out the table names, and after the table names, you can figure out the column names, and so you just get more information so that you can eventually dump out the contents of all the tables, and that's usually one of the major goals as far as doing SQL injection is concerned. So let's finish the class. We're a bit over time. Sorry to everybody who needs to get to different appointments. Okay, so SQL injection. So these vulnerabilities can lead to sensitive data exposure, admin account takeover, web server takeover, and more. Error-based SQL injection is a type of in-band SQL injection where error messages from the database software are returned to the web app interface. So there are some useful commands you can use for MySQL. For example, to get the name of the database, we can do select database. If we wanted to return all data in a single column, we could do something fancy like they did in the try hack me exercise over there. Let's see. And we also learned about blind SQL injection. So blind SQL injection is a type of injection where error messages resulting from the improper SQL queries has been disabled, but the requests are going through nonetheless. So blind SQL is a more difficult type of SQL injection than the in-band type. And a very typical type of blind SQL injection is the authorization bypass. And that lets you that lets you log into a web app because of insecurely written code that allows login of the user without a proper username or password. So the most basic authorization bypass SQL command is illustrated by the SQL command shown above. Note that there is a space present in the command after the double dashes. So if you remember anything else from this workshop, please remember that you can use this payload right over here. You can use this payload over here to bypass login in applications that have SQL injection. Okay, so what's next? In the next web app hacking workshop, we're going to conclude our exploration of SQL injection with TryHackMe, covering the Boolean and time-based SQL injection. So these are big pain in the butt types of SQL injection, and they're covered in task 7 and task 8 in this TryHackMe room. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next session. The next session is going to be on Monday. So if you want to conclude our amazing adventures with SQL injection, please be back here on Monday, and we're going to be covering the rest of this TryHackMe room. Thank you very much. Okay, so everybody, that was the HackerFrogs AfterSchool lesson for today, and we're going to be doing about an hour, or maybe a little more than an hour, and we're going to do some free hacking exercises as the last part of today's live stream. Okay. All right. So let's get to it. Let's do a hack the planet, just because we love this redeem.
Hack the planet! Hack the planet! Shut up and get in.
Okay, so everybody, let's play some music while we do our hacking exercise. So everybody, today we're going to be covering the agent box over at the VulNyx website, and let me start up the VulNyx machine right now. So that's the agent machine. So we just need about a minute for this machine to spin up. So the name of the machine is called Agent, and the IP address is 10.02.57, so that's the IP address we're going to be hacking against. If you want to do this challenge yourself, then you can always go to the VulNyx website over here. And then you can download the virtual machine and deploy the virtual machine to your own network so you can hack against it. Of course, you're going to need some cybersecurity-oriented distribution of Linux or some other operating system to do your hacking. We like to use Kali Linux because it's very convenient and it has all of our security tools on it by default. So let's start our enumeration with an Nmap scan. So this is 57, right? Okay. So Nmap is going to scan a server and tell us all of the open ports and services available on the server. We give the command with -p- to scan all the ports, with -v for very verbose output, which is going to give us results before the scan is finished, with -t4 for 4 threads, which means it's going to run very fast but not too fast, and -s capital C for common scripts against whatever services we find, and capital V for versioning information for whatever services we find. So let's run our Nmap scan, and we see that port 80 and port 22 are open on this system. So if we take a look at the scan output, we see that port 22 is running OpenSSH software with version 9.2, which is very up to date, which means we're probably not going to exploit it that way. And we also see that port 80 is running a web server, and it's running Nginx version 1.22.1. So we see that there are only a couple of different there are only a couple of different services available on the box. What we're going to do first is we're going to run Nikto to see if there are any common low-hanging fruit vulnerabilities on the web server. Nikto is a web application vulnerability scanner, but it's a very old one. Most of the time, it's only going to pick up very common misconfigurations that might give us a clue as to what might be vulnerable on the server. So if we run the tool, we see that it's going to report the server version, the server software, and the version. And it's also going to report. It's usually going to report methods. It doesn't report the methods. Okay. So the next tool that we're going to use is we're going to use the dirb tool. And the dirb tool is a directory busting tool. That's what it stands for, directory B for busting. And we're going to see if there are any endpoints or hidden or directories available on the target. So when we run this, we see that some unusual results came back, and we've got this directory over here called WebSVN. I'm not sure what SVN stands for, but what we can do is we can manually go into the web server, and we can do that with HTTP 10.02.57, and we can navigate to the WebSVN directory. So the I have no idea what this is. So WebSVN, we've got a version number. I'm going to try asking ChatGPT, what is WebSVN? Okay, so WebSVN is a web-based interface for browsing and managing Subversion repositories. Subversion is a version control system used for tracking changes to files or recording work on those files among multiple people. Okay, so I think what they're trying to say is that WebSVN is an alternative to GitHub. So GitHub is another version control system. So it's how you can keep everybody on the same page as far as a software project is concerned. It says that WebSVN provides a user-friendly way to interact with a SVN repository through the web browser. Okay. So I think the important thing that we're supposed to take away here is that WebSVN is running with a specific version in this case. So anytime I see an unusual technology and a version number, I like to copy that and I like to search for exploits. So there's this software over here. It's running at this version. I'm going to see if there's some sort of exploit available for this. So I'm going to search this on Google. And we get a result from the ExploitDB website. So the ExploitDB website tells us that there is a vulnerability for WebSVN at this version. Let's take a look. Okay, so there's remote code execution for this software. And this is a Python script. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the code over here, and we're going to see if this exploit script can actually get us remote code execution on this target. So I'm just going to copy this, and then on our Kali system, we're going to write a file. So we're just going to call this WebSVN underscore exploit .py. Okay. Then we're going to paste in our code. And we're going to, let's just take a quick look at what this code is doing. So we're importing the requests and the argparse modules and the URL libparse. So we've got our payload, and I guess the payload is sending some sort of reverse shell connection. And the reverse shell connection refers to a specific IP address and port. So I guess what we need to do is we need to change this information over here to match our environment. So on my network, this is the IP address of the attacking machine. I'm going to change the port number over to 443. And the request payload is going to a specific endpoint, so which is search.php. So I need to make sure that the that this endpoint exists on the target. So search.php. Let me take a look at the website. Too many tabs open. Let me get rid of some of these tabs. Okay. So we need to make sure that the search.php exists. Okay, so search for items here. Let me try something. Test. Okay, so search.php exists. It's in the WebSVN directory. So we need to change the name of the payload over to match. So it's going to be in the /WebSVN directory and then /search.php. web.svn/search.php. Okay, I think this matches now. So let's see. Target should start with HTTP or HTTPS. Okay. Requests. Target equals args.target. Ah, okay. Okay, I think I know what we need to do. So I'm just going to save this out, and I'm going to start a netcat listener. I'm going to start a netcat listener on port 443. So if the exploit script works, we're going to get a connection on this netcat listener over here. Okay, so we're going to run Python for this exploit script. Sorry. Throat is getting a bit scratchy. I have been streaming for a number of hours. So I think what we need to do is we need to supply an IP address or domain. 57. Okay. So let's see if this works. Okay, so I think this exploit might have worked because this the Python script is hanging. Okay, so we got a reverse shell connection. So we're in. So we need to put on our voice changer.
This is my scary hacker voice, everybody. Whenever we break into a web server or some other server, we have to put on the scary hacker voice and say, "We're in."
Alright, how was that, everybody? Was that scary? Alright, so we're in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how we can upgrade our shell. Well, not just upgrade our shell, but make it a better shell, like an SSH shell. So this shell that we have right now, we don't have command history. We can't do file name tab autocomplete, and we can't run We can't run programs like Nano or anything that that we need to do keyboard shortcuts in. So what we're going to do first is we're going to upgrade our shell partially by locating Python. So we need to figure out which Python exists on the target, or Python 3. So Python 3 exists on the target. We're going to upgrade our shell using Python 3 with this command right here. Import pty.spawn bin bash. Okay. Python 3 not found. Wait, is there no Python 3? I thought... I must have hallucinated that. Okay, which Python 2? There's no Python? There's no any Python, huh? There's no Python. There's no Python 2. And there's no Python 3. Huh. That's unusual. I think we might be able to upgrade our shell with like Perl or something. I've never done that before. But let me see if there's this kind of technique exists first. So netcat shell upgrade Perl. Okay, so first of all, what we need to do is we can use the Python pty module, so we don't have this option because Python is not installed on the box. So we can use socat. There's very little chance that there's socat available on the system, but we can check. Which socat? Yeah, there's no socat on the system either. Okay. If socat isn't installed, you're not out of luck. There are some standalone binaries that can be downloaded from the awesome GitHub repo. Okay, sure. So with command injection vuln, it's possible to download the correct architecture, socat binary to the writable directory, chmod it, and then execute a reverse shell in one line. Huh. Okay. On Kali, you'll catch a fully interactive TTY session. It supports tab auto-completion, all this stuff, and it's a full terminal, pretty sweet. Okay. Alright, so let's try this command over here to download a socat binary. So let's copy that. But what is going on in this command? So we're downloading the binary, and then we're... okay. So what we need to do is we need to edit this command a little bit. So the one-liner command over here is supposed to download the socat binary, and then it gives executable permissions, and it runs the socat binary and connects to a reverse shell at this address over here. So what I need to do is I need to adjust this so that it matches my environment, and then give a port number. Okay, so this is the one-liner command. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to execute it on the target to get a socat connection, socat reverse shell. But before that, we need to run our netcat listener. Actually, do we run a netcat listener, or do we run a socat listener? I've never used socat before, so I'm gonna ask ChatGPT about the socat listener. How can we run a SOCAT listener for reverse shell connections? Okay, so it's going to be SOCAT D listen on the port. All right. Okay, so let's copy the command. And then go to here, TCP listen on this port, and the port we're going to specify is 443. We're going to run this, and we've got a SOCAT listener on the on our box. So next, we're going to run the SOCAT one-liner command to download the SOCAT binary and run the reverse shell connection. So we're going to paste this in and give this command. And hopefully, we have a connection now. Okay, do we have a SOCAT connection now? Did that not work? So it looks like that might not have gone the way I wanted it to. Okay. Alright, so I think I need to go back to the drawing board. Let's get out of that shell. Oh, we need to get out of this as well. Okay, so we listen on this port, and then we run the exploit again, which is Python, this one. Okay, so we've got our connection back to the machine, and then what we need to do is we need to first download the SOCAT binary. Who are we? We're the www data user. Okay, so let's go into the temp directory. Let's see. Gopak says, GPT said that SOCAT is a networking tool, not a command shell or interpreter. For who am I to work? A shell must be explicitly invoked via SOCAT's exec option. Alternatively, you can use SOCAT to forward data to a service or shell capable of interpreting or responding to who am I. I thought I did the exec. So I used this command over here, and it should run bin bash after a connection is received. So this should have worked. I think. So okay, I'm going to keep on trying. First, I'm going to move into the temp directory, and then I'm going to try downloading the file first. So we've got this big. Or is that over here? So SOCAT. So the first part of the command is over here, and this is going to download the file. So the download portion of the file is this. Oh, you know what? Okay, so if for some reason there's no wget on the system, then this is going to fail. So, which wget? Okay, so wget exists, so we can try downloading the file with this command. So, okay, now we have the SOCAT file on the system. We can make the file executable. SOCAT. So it's now executable. Okay, so that part is done. on this part here, we're going to run the SOCAT listener. You know, I'm going to double check to see if this is the right command. Sometimes ChatGPT doesn't give you the right syntax. So I'm just going to search for SOCAT reverse shell command. Oh, sorry. SOCAT reverse shell listener. Okay, so SOCAT over here. Bind and reverse shells with Linux with netcat and SOCAT. Okay, so there's an article over here. Let's search for SOCAT in here. How about reverse shell with SOCAT? SOCAT with reverse shell. To receive a connection, okay, so to execute a bash shell in another machine. So do I use this one? I think I use this one for the reverse shell. So on our attacking machine, we should be using this one. I think I got that's okay. Let's run that. Okay, so this is the attacker machine SOCAT command, and I think this is the command we want to run from the victim machine. So back over here, I'm just going to edit the command a little bit. So port 443. Okay. Let's run this command. From the victim machine, which is this. Okay, so this should have sent the reverse shell. Okay. All right, so this is the SOCAT shell. We're connected. We don't have command history. Unfortunate. We can clear. Oh, the term environment variable is not set. Okay. So I think now we can upgrade our shell using magic, and the magic is, hold on. Actually, we can't do this yet. So I need to exit out of here. I need to make sure that I'm running a bash terminal. And then after that, we need to set up our SOCAT listener. Sorry if this is a bit... Okay, SOCAT listener here. Great. Okay. And then we're going to run that SOCAT connection again. We get the connection again, great. Okay, so this is the magic. The magic is, first of all, we background the process by doing Control-Z, and then we do STTY-A to get our terminal information, such as the rows and the columns, which is required to do the next step. So the next step is to do STTY raw minus echo, which is going to echo everything. Anyways, after that, we're going to foreground to go back to the SOCAT process. And then we're going to set our terminal. So we're going to export shell. It's going to be bash. We're going to export our terminal. It's going to be xterm 256 color. That's the one that Kali uses. And then we're going to stty and then set our rows to 31 and our columns to 135. Okay, so I think we have command history now, and we should have tab autocomplete. Yeah, we have tab autocomplete, and we can also use text editors like Nano. So nano test.txt, this also works. Okay, so we've successfully upgraded our shell. Okay, so now we can figure out if we have sudo permissions on the system. So let's see. So sudo L, what sudo permissions? www.data may run the following commands on agent. As the Dustin user with no password, we can run the C99 binary. I have no idea what this binary is. We can take a look at GTFO bins and see if there's any info on it. So GTFO bins, and we can C99. What is this thing? I have no idea what it is. Okay, so let's see. What is this program? Okay, I'm gonna look this up real quick. What is the C99 program in Linux? Okay, it's a command line utility used to compile and link C programs according to a C99 standard. So it's a compiler. Okay. So we can abuse this program, apparently, according to the according to the GTFO bins over here. So if the binary is allowed to be run as superuser by sudo, it does not drop elevated privileges and may be used to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privilege access. So we can use this program to run another shell. So all we need to do is provide this over here, and let's edit this slightly. So what we need to do here is we need to run it as the user Dustin. Okay, and this command should get us an interactive shell as the Dustin user. So we're now the Dustin user. Okay, great. Okay, and now that we're the Dustin user, what permissions do we have? So the Dustin user can run as root the SSS agent command. So SSS agent, what is this? SSH agent. SSH agent. So first of all, let's see if there's an entry on SSH agent on GTFO bins. There is. Okay. So, okay, I'd like to know what SSH agent is in the first place. So I'll just ask ChatGPT. What is the SSH agent program in Linux? Okay, so it's a helper program that manages private SSH keys and performs cryptographic operations on behalf of the user. It eliminates the need to enter your SSH passphrase each time you connect to an SSH server or perform an SSH-related operation. Okay, but more importantly, we can get root access with it if we can run it as sudo. If the binary is allowed to run as superuser by sudo, it does not drop elevated privileges and may be used to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privilege access. Sudo SSH agent bin. What does this command do? It's not immediately apparent that this is going to get me shell access, because nothing in this command indicates that a shell is opened. But let's try. Okay, so we're just going to give the command SSH agent bin permission denied. We shouldn't see permission denied when we're running sudo. That's interesting. Okay. So first of all, what is this command doing? What does this command do? The command SSH agent bin is unusual and likely not what was intended. Here's what happens step by step. What SSH agent does: when executed, this starts an SSH agent process. By default, it runs in the background and sets environment variables needed for other programs to interact with it. If an argument like this is provided, SSH agent interprets it as a command or program to execute. The bin argument specifies a directory which is not a valid executable. SSH agent will attempt to execute bin, but because it's not a valid executable file, the command will fail and typically error like this. Okay, so were we supposed to get the error? And if we were supposed to get the error, are we now sudo? Are we now root? We're still Dustin. So we're still Dustin. So even though we ran sudo, is there something? So is this command incorrect in this case? Thank you very much for following, Stacy. Stacy on Twitch, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the HackerFrogs gang. It can be used to break out of restrictive environments by spawning an interactive system shell. So I think what we want to do is instead run SSH agent with bin sh instead of just bin. Thank you very much, Stacy, for having an interesting username. Yeah. So it should be /bin/sh. So let's try that. So sudo ssh agent /bin. Ooh, oh, okay. This is going weird. Sudo sss-agent /bin/sh. Now who am I? Now I'm root. Okay. So so what we need to do is we need to run this redeem because we're now root.
What are you?
I'm system root.
Okay, so we rooted the system. Yay! Awesome. Okay. So we were able to root the system because we were able to take advantage of the SSH agent binary, which we could run as sudo. I don't know why this particular command is wrong on GTFO bins, but I guess they weren't paying attention. Okay. So let's move into the root directory. Remember, we finished these exercises by reading the root.txt file, but since the people over at VulNyx don't want us to read the root.txt files on live streams or videos, what we're going to do instead is we're going to cat the root.txt file, but output that to iReadRoot.txt. And then we're going to run nd5sum on iReadRoot.txt and root.txt. So this proves that we've read the root file because we were able to create a new file from the output which has the same MD5 sum file hash. Okay, and we're now finished the exercise. Yay! So let's delete the iReadRoot. Ooh, why is this terminal so weird? rm iRead root.txt. Okay. So, man. All right, so that was an interesting box. I've never interacted with this particular piece of software before, WebSVN. So that was an interesting thing to encounter on this particular exercise. As well, I've never used either of the two programs that were used for privilege escalation, which were the C99 program as well as the SSH agent program. So that was interesting as well. I also got to try out using SOCAT. I don't usually use SOCAT because well, I've never needed to, but it's good to be challenged to try out some new things, such as setting up a SOCAT connection. All right, so I think we might end our stream a little bit earlier today, but before that, let's find somebody from the InfoSec community to raid. So there's infosecstreams.com, and I'm the only person who's streaming from. GoPuck says, "Are you watching the Tyson?" I am not watching the Tyson fight. Is it going? Is the right person getting beat up? If the right person is not getting beat up, I don't want to hear about it. But yeah, did it start? What time did it start? Okay, so let's see. Let's see who else is on Twitch right now. It hasn't started yet. Okay, well, you know, I don't want to hear about it unless Tyson's winning, because I really don't want Tyson to lose because I really don't like. Anyways, let's not talk about that. I really want Tyson to win, is what I'm trying to say. Stacy says, woke up coincidentally during both this stream and that upcoming fight. Woke up, Stacy. Are you in a weird time zone, or well, no, there are no weird time zones. Are you outside North America? Just wondering. But let's see who we could raid here. So let's go to science and technology. No, software development, software and game development. Oh, you're in the EU. Okay. It must be super early for you right now then. Or super late. Oh, it's probably super late right now, yeah. Let's raid. Okay, I see CM Griffing. I think I've watched this person's channel before. They're doing some coding right now, some programming. So CM Griffing, let's set up a raid. And so before we go, I'd like to say thank you very much for everybody for watching today. We're going to be back on Monday. I hope everybody has a great weekend. And I hope Mike Tyson wins tonight, because that would be the best result. But we're going to be back on Monday. We're going to be back with more HackerFrogs AfterSchool web app stuff, and more free hacking stuff as well. So before we go out, let's do one last redeem and hack the planet, everybody.
Hack the planet!
So everybody, if I would really appreciate it if everybody would type in hip hop hack with the OS frog after arriving on CM Griffin's channel, just like this. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
No, you're fine, Colbert. It's fine. It's only weird because you're making it weird. The nature to being cool is not calling yourself weird.